The clink of silverware never sounded so final. It wasn't the first time she humiliated me, but it was the first time she didn't flinch doing it. One bite into her grilled salmon, and she laid me bare in front of 6 dinner guests with a sentence so sharp, I forgot how to chew. He's just jealous because Tanner actually gets things done. That was it. No hesitation. No smile. She didn't say it with heat. Worse, she said it like fact. Like she was pointing out the sky was blue. That her husband, the man sitting 3 seats down, was simply incapable compared to the man next to her. Tanner looked down, faked modesty. The others laughed awkwardly. Someone coughed. The waiter poured wine like nothing happened. And me? I sat there with my fork suspended midair, heart racing, wondering how we got here. How I got here. 37 minutes earlier, I was slicing lemon for her sparkling water, still hoping tonight might be okay. I steamed my shirt, shaved, even Googled how to look confident at formal dinners. I parked a block away because she didn't want the valet to see our old car. I let that go too. I let everything go. Until that. Until her voice, steady and unbothered, placed him above me like it had been rehearsed. Rewind a bit. She used to ask for my opinion. On her outfits, her presentations, even her stupid real estate taglines. Does this sound too pushy? She'd ask. Too cliché. She used to care what I thought. I used to matter. Then came the collaborations. She and Tanner were hosting open houses together. It's just business, Curtis, she'd say, tossing her keys into the bowl like it meant nothing. He's engaged. Relax. Oh, right. Engaged. Because engaged men don't flirt. Engaged men don't text wives after midnight. Engaged men don't whisper things during car rides that make them giggle like teenagers. I tried to be cool. I nodded. I kept calm. I ironed her blouses. I cleaned the kitchen before her showings. I clipped grocery coupons so she could buy her fancy oat milk. And every time I saw his name pop up on her screen, I swallowed something bitter and told myself I was paranoid. But tonight wasn't paranoia. Tonight, she told everyone with her eyes, her voice, her posture, that he was better than me, that my jealousy was laughable, that my presence was inconvenient. So I stopped. Right there at the table, I stopped reaching for the wine. I stopped smiling at her jokes. I stopped pretending that this was salvageable. And deep down, something inside me, something quiet and weak and hopeful, finally went still. The rest of the night blurred. I don't remember dessert. I don't remember the drive home. I remember her humming in the bathroom like nothing happened. I remember brushing my teeth in silence, staring at the man in the mirror who had become invisible in his own marriage. But the next morning, everything became clear. Because when she left her phone unlocked on the counter, I saw it. And the truth was so much worse than what she said at that table. It wasn't just Tanner she defended. It was something else. Something planned. I stood in the kitchen longer than I should have, pretending to organize the drawer where we keep old chargers, spare batteries, and those strange plastic clips for snack bags that we never actually use. Her phone sat on the counter. Face up. Unlocked. Innocent. For a long time, I stared at it like it might wake up and bite me. She was in the shower upstairs, singing a 90s pop song like she hadn't just leveled me in front of our friends the night before. Like she hadn't just chosen him again, publicly, confidently, like it was the most natural thing in the world. The water was running. She was humming. And her screen lit up with a text from Tanner. Last night was electric. She had no idea, huh? Smirking face. Everything inside me froze. I hadn't even touched the phone yet, and somehow, just that preview, that little teasing smirk from a man who didn't even have the decency to hide his arrogance, hit me harder than any slap could. My hands were trembling before I even unlocked it. I know what you're thinking. I shouldn't have opened it. It's wrong. It's a violation. But let me ask you something. What do you do when the woman you've built your entire life around makes you feel like a stranger in your own home? When she tosses your self-worth under the table at a dinner party like used napkin trash? You look. And what I found. It wasn't just messages. It was plans. Weeks of them. Hidden lunch dates during client showings. Hotel bookings under his name, but with notes that mentioned her preferences, almond milk for coffee, the exact kind of pillow she liked. He knew things about her that I used to know. And now he didn't just know them, he used them. There was a voice memo she'd sent him 2 nights before the charity dinner. I played it on low volume, heart pounding through my chest. I honestly don't think he's ever going to figure it out. He still thinks we're just friends. And maybe that's what makes it feel so exciting, you know? Like, we have this little world that no one else gets to touch. That voice, so light, So carefree, like she was talking about a new sweater or a vacation rental, not her marriage. Not me. I scrolled further, holding my breath the whole time. It wasn't just lust. It was something darker. A text she sent him 2 weeks earlier read, "Once the commission clears on the Brookline property, we'll finally have enough. I'm just waiting for the right moment to tell him. He's so passive, he probably won't even fight back." I felt something in my stomach twist. Not because she was leaving. I think deep down I'd already lost her, but because of how little she thought of me. She wasn't just done. She was confident I wouldn't react, that I'd just accept it, nod politely, fold her sweaters on the way out. She was probably right. I didn't smash the phone. I didn't call her down and scream. I didn't do any of the things you see in movies when someone finds out they're being betrayed. Instead, I walked out the front door. In slippers. I wandered through our neighborhood like a ghost. Past the garden I once planted for her birthday. Past the neighbors who smiled at us like we were the kind of couple who had it all together. I ended up at a park bench 2 blocks away and just sat there, gripping my knees like I might unravel if I let go. That afternoon, she came downstairs and texted me casually. "Hey, where'd you disappear to?" Disappeared. Like I was a missing item. A sock. A key. Something small and forgettable that you half look for before giving up. But I didn't respond. Because something inside me had finally cracked open. Not rage. Not vengeance. Just the raw, unfiltered ache of truth. She had never believed I was worth the honesty. And now, finally, I knew that too. But this isn't where it ends. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a minute. I lay in bed beside her, wide awake, stiff as stone, while she shifted in her sleep and let out these soft sighs like everything in her world was perfectly aligned. The betrayal wasn't just in her texts or that smirk in his message, it was in her breathing, the ease in her body language, the quiet assurance that I'd never be more than an obstacle she could tiptoe around. By morning, I had already rehearsed everything in my head. The confrontation, the yelling, the shattered plates. But none of it happened. Because when the sun crept through the blinds, and she leaned over me, still smelling like coconut shampoo and entitlement, I said nothing. Not one word. She noticed. Of course she did. Her smile faltered for a second, just a flicker, and she asked, "Everything okay?" And I nodded. Let her stew in that. She left for work around 8:20. Same as always. Same coat, same coffee thermos, same blown kiss in the air that used to mean something. I stood in the hallway and watched the door close behind her. And then, I got to work. Not revenge. Not yet. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of that. No. What I did was subtler, colder, the kind of move she never saw coming because it didn't fit her image of me. First, I pulled the storage bin from the attic labeled winter stuff, not because it had sweaters, but because it had all our old paperwork shoved in there. Mortgages, tax returns, marriage certificates. I sorted every page with trembling fingers. I opened a fresh folder and labeled it exit plan. By noon, I had my own bank account set up. By 2 o'clock, I had called my cousin, the one I never see because Rin finds him socially exhausting. He offered me a spare room, no questions asked. By 4 o'clock, I had taken pictures of everything in the house that mattered, for inventory, for evidence, maybe for closure. I didn't know yet. I just knew I needed them. And by 6:30, when she walked back through that door and tossed her heels in the entryway like a queen returning from conquest, I was sitting on the couch like nothing had changed. I even asked how her day was. She blinked, surprised. Said, "Fine. Tiring." Then paused. "You didn't text me all day." "No," I said, sipping from the mug she'd given me on our 3rd anniversary. "Guess I was just busy." I watched her try to read me. That flicker again. The tiniest edge of concern. But still, she dismissed it. Because Rin doesn't believe people like me make moves. People like me, wait. People like me swallow things whole. People like me sit in the corner and applaud when we're told to. But I wasn't that person anymore. Later that night, while she was brushing her teeth, I stood in the bedroom and looked at her purse. I wasn't proud of it, but I opened it anyway. Inside was a folded receipt from a wine bar I didn't recognize. 2 glasses of Cabernet. 1 plate of oysters. 1 chocolate torte. The timestamp? Last Tuesday. The same night she told me her open house ran late and traffic was murder. I took a picture of the receipt, and I put it back exactly where I found it. I wanted her to feel safe. Still, I needed her to believe the illusion she'd built was intact, because only then would she start to unravel. Slowly, subtly, from the inside out. The silence didn't end that night. I didn't explode. I didn't accuse. But that silence? That's what started to scare her. She'd ask questions like, "You okay?" Or, "You seem distant," and I'd respond with the blandest smiles. A shrug. Tired. Work. Just one of those days. But behind every vague answer was a countdown ticking, and she had no idea how close we were to zero. In part 4, I'll tell you what I left in her car glove box, and how that single piece of paper flipped the power dynamic in ways she never expected. And trust me, she noticed. It was strange how calm I felt that morning. Not peaceful, that wasn't it, but calm in the way a person might feel while walking barefoot across ice, fully aware it could crack beneath them at any second. There was no more guessing, no more hoping. I wasn't fighting for our marriage anymore. I was gathering my exit notes. Quietly, politely. The same way I used to fix the broken garbage disposal or repaint the baseboards. Without applause, without thanks, just because someone had to. Ren had another meeting that day. Mid-morning, casual. Hair curled a little more than usual. Perfume I hadn't smelled since the anniversary she forgot last year. She even wore lipstick, something she hadn't bothered with in months unless we were seeing people who didn't include me. She was still underestimating me. She had no idea I'd already printed out the text thread between her and Tanner. I had it all. I didn't print the whole chain. I wasn't going to overwhelm her yet. Just one screenshot. Just enough to crack her mirror. I folded the paper in half, no envelope, just clean and sharp with the edges slightly bent from my fingers. On the back, in my own handwriting, I wrote 4 words. Tell him I know. I slipped it into the glove box of her car, right on top of the pink eye scraper and expired insurance cards she never bothered replacing. I closed it gently. No cameras. No drama. Just a message from the man she thought had no voice. She left at 10:04 a.m. I watched from the window, sipping lukewarm coffee, as she pulled out of the driveway, probably rehearsing whatever lie she had ready in case I asked about her lunch with a staging expert. I didn't wave. I didn't text. I just waited. The next 2 hours were a mix of pacing, pretending to work, and replaying every moment from the past 6 months that I had ignored. Every fake smile. Every half excuse. Every time she set her phone face down and said, "It's nothing." Then at 12:46 p.m., she called. I let it ring. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then I answered with the flattest "yeah" I've ever managed. She didn't speak right away. All I could hear was the engine running and her shaky breath. When she finally said my name, it was quiet. Careful. Curtis. Did you put something in my car? I waited 3 seconds before answering. Yeah. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath underwater. I don't understand. What is this? I didn't say anything. Curtis, can we talk? I thought we were. Long pause. I could hear the blinker ticking. She was pulled over somewhere. Can we meet? I'll come home. No. You should finish your lunch. She hesitated. I'm not at lunch. Sure you are. Then I hung up. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the months of being sidelined, the constant second-guessing myself, but in that moment, I wasn't her husband. I wasn't the guy folding her laundry or bringing her forgotten keys to the car. I was a stranger holding a truth she didn't think I could ever uncover. She didn't come home for 4 hours. When she finally did, her face looked different. She was pale, eyes red around the rims like she'd been holding in tears or rage, probably both. She didn't say anything when she came inside. Just stood in the entryway with her purse hanging uselessly off her elbow. I didn't even look up from the laptop. I let her stand there. I let the silence settle around her like a fog. Eventually, she muttered, "We should talk." I said, "You first." She sat on the edge of the couch like it burned. It wasn't supposed to go this far. A cliché. A weak one. She didn't even deny it. That was the part that hit hardest. What was it supposed to be? I asked. She stared down at her lap. Just harmless. I don't know. He listened. He made me feel seen. You were always busy or tired or not noticing. I wanted to laugh, but it stuck in my throat like a splinter. Noticing? I noticed everything. I noticed her silence before she noticed mine. I noticed when she stopped saying goodnight, when she stopped wearing the pajamas I gave her for Christmas. I noticed when she smiled with only half her mouth. But she wasn't done. I thought maybe you'd never find out. That maybe it would fade and things would just go back to normal. Normal. The words sounded alien in her mouth. There was no normal. Not anymore. Normal burned the moment she chose him, and scorched again when she defended him at that dinner table like I was the fool for ever doubting. So I stood up. Not fast. Not with anger. Just stood, like a man who needed to stretch his legs after sitting in denial for too long. I walked upstairs and closed the door behind me. It's a strange thing, watching someone who used to own your heart slowly realize they've lost control of the room. There was a time when Ren could look at me a certain way, and I'd fold. Apologize for things that weren't my fault. Blame myself for the distance she created. But not this time. Not after what I'd read. Not after hearing her voice, soft and giddy, whispering to another man that I'd never figure it out. That I was too slow, too docile. Like some benign pet in the background of her real life. When I closed the bedroom door that evening, I didn't lock it. I didn't need to. Ren didn't follow. Not right away. I could hear her pacing downstairs, her heels clicking against the hardwood like a metronome in a panic. I imagined her rehearsing lines, calculating angles. She wasn't used to me holding the silence. She was used to me unraveling first, crawling toward resolution. That night, I didn't give her that. She knocked eventually. A soft, timid knock, the kind you reserve for strangers or sick relatives. Curtis. Her voice cracked. Please, can we talk? I didn't answer. Not out of cruelty, but because I genuinely didn't have anything to offer her. I'd emptied every version of myself into this relationship. The patient husband, the forgiving partner, the fool. And all I got back was a woman who planned a life beyond me with someone who texted in emojis and booked hotel rooms with the discretion of a teenager. She knocked again. I messed up. I know I did. But I didn't mean for it to get this bad. I didn't think you'd shut down like this. And that's when I realized something. She wasn't sorry she betrayed me. She was scared I'd stopped playing my part in the dynamic. The one where I absorb her guilt like a sponge, wring myself out, and come back ready to try again. I opened the door slowly, just enough to see her face. Tears. Red cheeks. Mascara smudged under one eye. She looked like the Ren I used to hold when she had bad days, the version of her I once protected from the world. Only now, she was crying not from pain, but from losing her control over mine. I don't love him, she whispered. It was stupid. I felt lonely, and you were always so far away even when you were right there. He made me feel seen. I stood there, blinking. I see you, I said. I always did. You just stopped seeing me. She reached out to touch my arm, and I stepped back. The gesture wounded her more than any cruel word could have. She actually flinched. You're really not going to yell? Or curse? Or say anything? What's left to say? I asked. You already told him everything. And me? You told the truth with your silence. Every night you lied about where you were. Every time you laughed at his texts while sitting on the couch with me. That was the conversation. She collapsed onto the edge of the bed like her knees gave out. Her shoulders curled inward. For a moment, I felt a flicker of something. Not love, not pity, but the echo of a past life. The version of us that used to feel real. I don't want this to end, she mumbled. Curtis, please. I know I screwed up, but I swear I'll fix it. I sat in the chair across from the bed, folded my hands, and stared out the window. I don't think you understand, I said slowly. It already ended. You're just the last one to notice. She cried then, harder than I'd ever seen her cry. Loud, gasping sobs that filled the room and should have made me feel something. But all I felt was tired. Bone-deep tired. I didn't yell. I didn't storm out. I just let her fall apart while I sat in silence, watching the shadows stretch across the walls. When the tears slowed, she whispered, Are you leaving me? No, I said. I already left. I just haven't packed yet. The next morning was quieter than any morning I can remember in our home. No music from her phone. No clinking of cereal bowls. No kettle humming. Just the sound of her movements upstairs, small, awkward, slow. As if she was afraid of waking a version of me she'd never met. A version of me that didn't beg, didn't break, didn't beg her to choose me again. I stayed seated at the kitchen table long before she came down. I had already packed one duffel, just the essentials. A couple changes of clothes. My laptop. The folder. I placed it on the table like a contract ready to be signed. Only there wasn't anything for her to agree to anymore. Just reality, printed and waiting. She came downstairs wearing one of my old hoodies. The one she always stole after fights. She must have thought it would soften the weight between us, stir some nostalgic part of me. It didn't. It just looked like a costume now. I made coffee, she offered, her voice barely a whisper. I nodded. Didn't touch the mug she placed near me. Let it sit and cool next to the folder. Her eyes drifted toward it. What's that? Just facts, I said flatly. She opened it. Her hands trembled like she was holding something radioactive. And in a way, she was. Inside were printouts, not just of the text thread, but a copy of the hotel receipt, the wine bar bill, screenshots of their chat logs. But I didn't stop there. At the very bottom, I included a letter, not one I wrote, but one from her mother. It wasn't something I'd planned to use, but in the middle of all this chaos, I remembered a conversation we had months ago. Her mom had once confided in me that Rin was pulling away from everything, from family, from decency, and that she'd noticed something was off, even if she didn't know the full picture. She was worried. She handed me a letter, sealed, and said, "Use this if she ever breaks what you two built." Rin saw the handwriting and froze. "You went to my mom?" she asked, blinking hard. Seriously. I didn't respond. She opened the letter. Her eyes scanned it fast, but then slowed toward the middle. Her face dropped, and I watched as whatever wall she had been leaning on crumbled from the inside. In the letter, her mother had written, "You keep pretending you're still the girl who means well, but you're not. You've become someone else, someone who thinks loyalty is optional and kindness is something to perform. Curtis may be quiet, but he sees you. He has always seen you. And you'll lose him if you keep treating him like an accessory you can misplace and pick up again later." I didn't know what Ren expected to find that morning. Maybe a screaming match, maybe a chance to cry and control the narrative. But what she got was proof. Plain, emotionless proof that I had known more than I let on, and that others saw her slipping, too. She pushed the folder away and finally whispered, "Are you trying to ruin me?" I looked up, finally meeting her eyes. "No, Ren. You ruined yourself. I just stopped covering for it." She wiped a tear with the sleeve of my hoodie. "Do you want me to leave?" I didn't answer. Instead, I reached into my pocket and slid my wedding ring across the table toward her. It didn't clink. It just landed, quietly, like everything else in this unraveling. The silence that followed wasn't tense. It was hollow. And yet, for the first time, it felt like the most honest sound in our marriage. But that wasn't the end of it. Because when I left the house that morning with my duffel, she didn't try to stop me. But he did. I didn't go to my cousin's place right away. After leaving the house, I drove for almost an hour without any real direction. Just me, the sound of the road, and the weight of something that didn't feel like victory, or justice, or even closure. It felt more like an ending that no one applauds. Quiet. Messy. I passed gas stations and diners I'd never noticed before, drifted through neighborhoods that didn't belong to me. And eventually, I ended up in the parking lot of a hardware store. Why there? I don't know. Maybe because it was empty. Maybe because it was anonymous. Or maybe because, in a weird way, it was a place where things were either broken or being fixed, and I didn't know which one I was yet. I sat there for a long time, head leaning back, eyes closed, replaying everything Rin had said and all the things she didn't. I didn't notice the car pull up beside me until someone knocked on the window. I flinched. It was Tanner, wearing sunglasses and that smug expression he must have been born with. He didn't wait for an invitation, just yanked open my passenger door and slid in like we were friends. Like he had a right to sit next to me. "I figured you'd need to talk," he said, like he was doing me a favor. I stared at him, stunned. My heart started thudding, not out of fear, but from the sheer audacity of it. "How did you know where I was?" I asked. "She told me," he shrugged. "Said you left without saying much. Thought maybe you'd be here." So she sent him. She didn't even come herself. Just handed the aftermath off to the man she cheated with. "I don't want to talk to you," I said quietly. "I get it," he said, removing his sunglasses. "You're hurt. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." I laughed. It wasn't a joyful laugh. It was a short, stunned exhale that sounded more like disbelief. "Don't insult me with that," I said, turning to face him fully now. "You didn't mean for it to happen? You weren't sleepwalking when you texted her, or when you booked those hotels, or when you told her she deserved better." He shifted in his seat, suddenly less comfortable. "She told me things about you," he muttered. "Yeah? Did she tell you I was the one who paid off her student loans? That I stayed through her father's chemo while you were still exploring your options? That I held her when she had her panic attacks in the middle of the night and never once made her feel ashamed of it?" Tanner opened his mouth, but I didn't let him speak. "No. She didn't tell you those things because those don't fit her narrative anymore. The new version of her? She needs you to think I'm weak, uninspired, the guy who let her down. That's how she lives with what she did." He went quiet, his hands resting tensely on his knees. "I didn't expect to fall for her," he finally said. "You didn't fall for her," I replied. "You fell for the version she performed for you. She used you to rewrite her own story. I could see him starting to unravel. Just a bit. The confidence in his face cracking. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't threatening. But I was telling the truth, and he didn't know what to do with it. You think she's going to stay with you now? I asked. Really? You think she's going to build a future with the man who helped destroy her present? Even if she does, you'll always be the guy she cheated with. That doesn't turn into love. That turns into resentment. Slow and bitter. Tanner swallowed hard. I didn't come here to fight. No, I said, leaning back. You came here to justify yourself. And I'm not going to help you do that. He started to say something else, but I cut him off with a glance toward the door. You should go. He hesitated, then finally stepped out and closed the door behind him. I watched him walk back to his car, slower than before. He didn't look back. That was the moment I realized I didn't want revenge. I didn't want some big dramatic scene. What I wanted was exactly what I'd just given him, the truth. And the truth, spoken calmly, is often the most terrifying sound in the world. I stayed in that parking lot for another 20 minutes, breathing in the silence. When I finally started the engine and pulled away, I didn't feel stronger. I didn't feel lighter. But I felt done. And that's what mattered. 3 weeks passed. That might not sound like much, but after 12 years of marriage and months of silent erosion, 3 weeks can feel like another lifetime. I didn't go back to the house. I stayed with my cousin in a quiet little apartment above a donut shop. At night, the smell of fresh batter crept through the vents. It was strangely comforting, warm, sweet, simple. Everything my life hadn't been in a long time. Ren texted a few times. Short messages. Some were confused. Others were apologies that felt more like performances than real reflection. I didn't respond. Not out of spite, but because I had nothing left to give to that version of her or of us. And then, one Thursday morning, just as the city was waking up, I opened the door and there she was. No makeup. Hair tied up. A small suitcase beside her. A manila envelope in her hand. She looked older than I remembered. Not because of time, but because she was finally carrying the weight she used to place on my back. I'm not here to argue, she said softly. I stepped aside. She didn't come in. Just stood in the doorway. She handed me the envelope. Inside was a signed divorce agreement. Clean. No tricks. No claims on my savings. No negotiation. Just a signature and a note at the bottom. You were right. I just didn't know how to admit it. I held the paper in my hand, unsure what to say. I glanced down at her suitcase. She followed my gaze. I'm staying at my sister's, she said. I didn't come here to fix anything. I just came to return what's yours and to say thank you. Thank you. I repeated. For not becoming someone else. For not screaming. For not throwing it all back at me just because you could. For walking away with grace. For a long moment, we just stood there. Two people who used to be everything to each other, now just memories and skin and bone. And finally, I said something I never thought I would. I hope you find the version of yourself you've been chasing. Her eyes welled up, but she didn't cry. Not this time. She nodded, whispered goodbye, and turned. I closed the door gently behind her. No slamming. No bitterness. Just closure. Later that week, I moved into a small rental house closer to work. Nothing fancy, but mine. Quiet. Peaceful. I started cooking again, which I hadn't done in years. I joined a small hiking group. I picked up my guitar for the first time in forever. And for the first time in so long, I didn't feel like I was surviving my life. I was living it. There's no dramatic twist here. No sudden love interest. No grand gesture. Just a man who walked away when he had every reason to stay angry and discovered that peace isn't something someone gives you. It's something you build, quietly, painfully, brick by brick, once you stop asking broken people to love you whole. I don't know if Ren regrets it. Maybe she does. Maybe she doesn't. But me? I don't regret walking away. Because when she defended him over me, even when I was right, that was the day I stopped being the man she once loved and started becoming the man I'd almost forgotten I could be.